Hey everyone, Sky here to discuss Vice, starring Christian Bale, Amy Adams, Steve Carell, Sam Rockwell, Allison Pill, and Tyler Perry, and directed by Adam McKay. Now, I have seen Adam McKay do drama before in The Big Short, for example, that was one I didn't really care for as much, but because it was a finance movie. But let's see how I can like this one. Let's get into it. We start the movie with Dick Cheney, played by Christian Bale, drunk and is driving drunk, and a cop pulls him over, and of course, he's drunk, and doesn't balance himself as he gets pulled over by a cop, like I said earlier. And his wife, Lynn, played by Amy Adams, tells him to get his shit together, or else she walks out or is wasting her time, and he does get his shit together, and while that's going on, two different things happen. One is Lynn thinks about how her father gets home drunk and abuses Lynn and her mother, and two, we jump forward a bit, just one scene, to the 9/11 incident, which was such a tragic day for us Americans. Now, the acting of Christian Bale as he gets fat for the role. And I'm kind of tired of him transforming his body from being skinny in The Machinist, to getting buff in the Dark Knight trilogy, to getting fat in American Hustle, to extra fat in this role. Sorry, Cheney. Christian, it's amazing how you do it, but I think you need to knock it off with that, because you're going to kill yourself eventually. I don't want you to hurt yourself like that, is my point. I usually like Amy, and as for Amy Adams, I usually like her in the movies. And don't get me wrong, the performance by her and Christian Bale are tremendous, but I don't necessarily like these characters. Not that I'm Republican nor Democrat, I just don't give a shit. And I'm not an expert on politics. I'm more like one of those independent kinds, and there's a right and a wrong with politics in general, but I've got political problems with this movie when we get to the second half. Dick goes to politician school and begins to become a Republican, like his idol, Donald Rumsfeld, played by Steve Carell, and works for him while I'm thinking to myself, this is such a great performance by Steve Carell, and I know he wants to be a dramatic actor, but he can't get away from comedy in general as far as his laughs goes. In previous roles in Bruce Almighty, The 40-Year-Old Virgin, and Anchorman, and I do like Steve Carell in general, about how, and he's done good work in dramatic roles like in Foxcatcher, for example. But my problem with him as Donald Rumsfeld is Rumsfeld is a bullshitter. And Steve Carell, I don't believe, can bullshit people around like Donald in this movie. And Donald doesn't know how to answer the right questions in the appropriate time, is what I've been hearing. Dick gets in office at President Nixon's White House, and will become the Dick Cheney we will all know today in politics. And he's got a long way to go, and Lynn tells Dick, as he's pushing his own two little girls on the swings, and by the way, they're just playing, I'm not meaning that in a physical kind of way, that her mother drowned and died in a lake, and we get to the funeral, and we meet the father, we do see a couple of seconds with him at the beginning, but he feels like an asshole. By looking at him, and that's a good choice by this. But this movie is well made, and I'm admiring the shots and the cinematographer is using. Let me rephrase this. I'm admiring the shots that the cinematographer is using for the movie, as it was back in the day. Donald gets the chief of staff job while President Gerald Ford is in office, and Dick gets another chief of staff job. And I like the way this movie goes political in a good way. There's some good and bad with it, sure, until President Carter began to become president. Dick runs for Congress in Wyoming. Meanwhile, Dick goes to the hospital, and Lynn helps Dick with the campaign while Dick gets bed rest. And I do like the sequence, and again, Amy Adams does a great job with this character. Dick's one daughter, Mary, becomes a lesbian, and to quote Seinfeld, not that there's anything wrong with that, she runs away from high school, and between his job and his daughter to choose from, he chose his daughter, and credits come rather too early to roll, and I thought, is this fucking movie over? because we have a long way to go to get to the point of the movie. And the next thing you know, we hear George W. Bush is played by and George W. Bush is played by Sam Rockwell, who calls Dick because, and I'm going to refer to this name throughout the movie, GWB. I'm going to call him that for the rest of the movie. GWB wants Dick to be his vice president, and I like this version of GWB better than what Josh Brolin did in W. But the early credits rolling was random, and I really like Rockwell in this role, in my opinion. Dick reluctantly agrees to be GWB's vice president, very much. And I like the way that scene was shot, and it looks beautiful. Again, the cinematography is great looking. Dick and GWB win the race because of Dick, and that's when the movie gets problematic. Dick has a daughter who's gay, and GWB votes against gay marriage, and that's pretty hypocritical of Dick to get back to work in politics, and that was a problem throughout the rest of the movie. Because of the events of 9/11, not only the war in Afghanistan begins, but Dick Cheney wants to start another war with Iraq because he and Donald Rumsfeld believe Iraq have chemical weapons. Now, the problem I'm having is that's not the way democracy works. You have to talk to one another and vote. But nope, he decides what he does is right, and that was a bullshit call. And I get the impression that this director, well, I had this question, and that, is this director Republican? Well, the truth is he's like me, he's independent. And he thinks everything about Cheney, and he doesn't know what to believe of Cheney is right. And I should say, at the beginning of the movie, they do write that we did the best true way as possible. We did our fucking best, is what the credits said. Dick and Lynn's other daughter, Liz, is another Republican who votes against gay marriage, and going against her sister, Mary, played by Allison Pill. And again, that's very hypocritical of the Cheneys, and that's a serious problem. Another problem I'm having is the ending, when Dick says, "I'm not going to apologize for the shit I've done." And that really pissed me off, and the credits for real begin to roll. And we have a mid-credits scene where a guy who says the orange man is president and not Hillary Clinton, and somebody threatens him about wanting Hillary Clinton in office when really it's Donald Trump who's in office. And then they fight, and that is another scene that really pisses me off, because Donald Trump's in office, okay? Not Clinton. Stop assuming shit and get to fucking work talking to one another, you motherfuckers. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 5.2 out of 10. This movie is a Republican movie, and I'm not Republican nor Democrat. Either way, I don't give a shit, because I'm independent either way. Now, there's some things I like versus things I don't like about this movie, but don't get me wrong, it's well acted, well shot, and well made. And he gets into office, and that's when the movie gets lower and lower as far as my opinion's concerned. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and next week I will be back with Bohemian Rhapsody and A Star is Born. And until next time, and the Oscar goes to...